Morning. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another edition of Women Work Well. Air horn. I'm so excited to be here today to have a conversation. Y'all, we have these conversations as a part of the Women Work Well community to create space for people to just be. We hope to give you actionable nuggets that you can use in your day and in your journey related to motherhood. So I am joined by an amazing queen. I'm not going to do her bio justice because it's long. So welcome, Alisha. Would you
Hey.
introduce yourself to the people?
Hi, I'm Alisha Gordon. I am a native of East Atlanta. I live in Harlem. I am the founder and executive director of the Current Project, which is a nonprofit organization doing social, economic, and policy work for and with Black single mothers. hmm
Okay, so you a mama.
I am a mom. I have a 18-year-old rising sophomore at
Oh,
Spelman College, believe it or not. Oh, look,
boom.
the day over 35. Look at that.
Do you know what I'm saying? Do you know anything about Spelman College or?
I know a little bit. I earned a degree from Spelman. I got my bachelor's in English at Spelman in 2004, and then went on seems like years later, got a master's of divinity at Emory University at the Candler School of Theology. So, I'm Atlanta born and bred, raised, educated, public
Um,
school girl, but now living in Harlem doing all the New York things.
okay, so you said you're Atlanta born and bred, but can you roller skate?
I mean, going to glide every Friday and Saturday, you know what I'm saying, with the white rag in my back pocket. Because if it's not roller skating if you don't have a rag in your back pocket. That's the kind of roller skater I am.
So
Okay.
you smooth groove and okay. For funsies, I did take up roller skating again. Like, I mean, obviously you did it as a kid, but during COVID, I was like, my best friend was like, get some roller skates. I'm like, done. And so I've been trying to learn all the tricks. I've been on YouTube. It's a whole
It's a
like,
whole thing.
right.
I haven't roller skated in a while. I'm not sure how my knees would feel about it now. But in my mind, I still got it. And that's
Boom.
all.
That's all that matters. Okay, so there are so many things that I want to dive into, but I want to give people a little chance to get to know you. So you said you are from New York City.
I'm from Atlanta.
No, I'm sorry. You live in New York City.
Yes.
You're like, get it right. This is hey, all day. Okay, so you're in New York. Are you a subway kind of girl? Are you like private car in it? Like, what's the situation?
Gonna tell all my business. So let me tell you about the amount of money I spend taking Ubers across the city. Please go. But I am not above taking the subway. Well, that's one of the things I love about New York is that you can get to where you're going through multiple means and you don't have to drive, which is the primary point.
Nice. Okay, so are you like, hey, it's a night in the city, let's go out, night on the town, or are you like, you know what, it's a lot of people, I'm gonna sit right here in my
I live in Harlem, and the thing about I love about Harlem is that there are multiple restaurants on one street. So we'll start at one place and we'll have dinner, have drinks, and then we're like, "Oh, so and so is up the block," and so then you end up there. Before you know it, it's 2 a.m.
jelly. I'm
Yes, so I am here for a good night out on the town, and I think just by design, that's just what happens. At least in Harlem, is that you can literally start one place, end up at 5, and it's 2 a.m. So
Is anybody else having New York City envy right now? Is it just me? Just me? Okay, anyway. Okay, so we are here to talk about your journey as a mother. Do you want to give us just where do you want to start?
yeah, listen, I am a single mom. I had my daughter. I learned that I was pregnant with my daughter when I was a senior at Spelman. I tell this story often, and had these really big dreams of being a journalist and moving to New York and like becoming the next Khadijah James. But honey, you get pregnant with these babies, and it just shifts the
Right.
entire trajectory. And so I just had to make different choices, and I worked at like Sam's, the Costco type store. I was, underemployed and all these types of different things, and just really just trying to figure out my life. I became a high school English teacher when she was around 4 years old, and it really changed my ability to be more present for her, from going from this grind of retail work to like having the same schedule that she had as far as school was concerned. And so when she was around 11, I would make the decision, oh no, about 8, I would make the decision to go to graduate school, which changed the entire trajectory of our lives. And so, it has been through the grace of God and community that we've been able to have this trajectory. But child, we started on a bench at Spelman College and me crying my eyes out at 21 years old, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with my life. And I didn't. But God makes a way.
He
Lets you
does.
figure it out and puts people in your life to allow the dream to change, but a dream not deferred for sure. So that's how we got here.
I love it. So many things. I'm really, you know what? I'm not even about to give him a shout out. Anywho, I had a song in my head, but me and this artist and the misogyny, I can't do it. But suffice it to say, you was in one place and now you're here. No, we not giving him no credit. No, we are not giving him. No, we are Team Meg. Okay,
Okay. Fair.
you feeling me? Um, So you talk about really humble beginnings. You talk about being underemployed in that space. I'm guessing that you were probably living in poverty or experiencing episodes of poverty. And at the same time, you trying to do the best that you can for your baby. Talk to me and speak to a woman who is like in that space, who has big dreams, big aspirations, wants the world for her child, but the reality looks very different.
Yeah, we were in a place, we were completely relying on social safety net, food stamps, a WIC, all that kind of stuff. We were always just literally a paycheck and a half from, being late on rent and being evicted. And so, the first decade of my daughter's life, that's how we were living. And we were living that way even when I was teaching, you're right. I was only making like $33,000 a year as a high school English teacher. But one of the things for sure is that the dream I had of being a writer or storyteller or whatever it was turning itself to be never left me. And so what I have found is that I supplemented my life and my work by freelancing and writing for other folks, and just really trying to pull those pieces of not only just trying to connect us socially and economically, but trying to be in a place where I did not allow my circumstances to overtake my ability to dream. And I think that's such a critical part of the story for our moms who are having this type of experience, is that life is what it's going to be. The struggles are what they are. But we have to hold on to that thread of the dream that allows us to find and remain connected to a sense of ourselves, right?
Mhm.
And it was the connection to the sense of ourselves where I think people began to saw the vision and dreams and talents that I had, and was opening up doors and like, oh, you can write. So why don't you come over? I'm gonna pay you $200 to come do X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, bet, let's do it, right? And then realizing that there was something about the dream that was changing shape, but also creating more space for me and my daughter to be able to spend more time together in a weird way, right? Being able to bring her to class or bring her to work with me, or being able to have these shared experiences where it didn't feel like I was, the more work I did, the further the distance got between her and I. We actually found that it actually put us right in a place where she could sit under the table and do her little coloring, and I could do my writing, and you know how that works. So yeah, I mean, I think that that's such a critical part as we dig into this story and narrative, is that the dream is always there, right? And we just have to create the remember that it is there and hold on to that thread as we continue to navigate these kind of social and economic pieces of our story.
Mm, so many good things. Um, I know you are a woman of faith, and I was trying not to go here, but it's there. Okay. So I heard you say a thread of faith, not a rope, not a whole anchor, not all a thread, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just a little mustard seed. You just
Mm-hmm.
a little. And so I guess the word I would use is hope. Hang on
Yeah.
to hope. That your current reality may not be the same in a year, 5 years. And it takes being in relationship with people. It takes relying on, those around you, but it takes truly it's the inner work to
Yeah.
not allow the dreams and hopes and goals and aspirations to die.
Yeah.
Right? Because as you continue to pursue that thing, even though, right, you would have loved to have, the whole being Mary Jane and do all of the things, right? You couldn't do it full time. So
Mm-mm.
you did this much,
Just a
right?
little bit. Just a
And
little.
in doing so, you model for your daughter,
Yeah.
right? Because she's right there with you. So
Yep.
there is something to be said about holding on to like that distant dream in your heart, because that
Mhm.
may be what helps your children go further, and it may be what allows your circumstances to change.
Yeah. I mean, I want to kind of stamp what you're saying, this thread, not a rope, not an anchor, but an actual thread. I mean, as people of faith, you think about it was the smallest piece of people's engagement with Jesus, if that's your person of that you look to. But in my case, as a follower of the carpenter, it was always small pieces of it was just the hem of the garment. She didn't
Right.
have to grab
It
onto
was
the
the
whole.
whole rope. It was
She was like, baby, let me just get the hem. Okay, let me get that thread,
a
right?
thread.
Right. It was like, let me get the thread. And I saw there's something I really want to just stamp that to say is that it is the smallest. A lot of women often ask me, like, how do you, shift the trajectory of your experience if you're a single mom and you're working? Is that you only have to do one thing at a time.
Mm,
Whatever the one bit of your goal or your dream or the thing that you're passionate about, you only have to do one part of it. And
mm,
in my case, it was just writing, right? It was just writing. It wasn't podcasting. It wasn't having the full, picture. It was just saying, this is a gift I have. This is something I'm passionate
mm,
about. Any opportunity I have to do that one thing, I did it. And those were really the things that continue to like exponentially open up doors for the dream to actualize itself in a more meaningful way. So, honey, listen, don't discard the threads. That's the word.
mm. So doors of the church. So I hear you saying, don't let the gift die.
Mm.
Don't let the gift die. So in your experience, so you're working, you move from like retail, so now you have this education. How'd you make the leap to, okay, now you're in grad school and now your life is going, like, what was that journey like?
Yeah, so I decided in 2011 to quit my job as a teacher, to much chagrin of my mom and other people because they were like, what person who's a single mom quits their job? So I sold everything I had and I moved back home with my mom. And, when I just made that decision, the first thing I did was I got in fear. I started actually applying for teaching jobs again. Left a teaching job and was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm gonna do. So I started applying for teaching jobs. Of course, I didn't get any of them, right? Because God was like, girl, you just all right, bless your heart. So I would decide to go to graduate school in 2012, and it actually changed the entire trajectory of my life. Because I was in a seminary program, I always been a person of faith. I always had been this person who told the line between the sacred and the secular. I'm tattooed, I got blonde hair, I love a good cocktail, right? So I'm my full self. But it was the time where 3 years where I was really deepening this kind of understanding about who God was calling me to be. And so when I finished graduate school at Emory, it was actually relationships that I built there that someone recommended me for a job here in New York. I had always wanted to live in New York, but it was always out of my reach. I was a single mom. I was underemployed. I was still reliant on social safety net stuff. So I just knew that by my own way, there was no way I was going to make it to a city like New York where the rent is like 3,000 miles a month. And so it was those relationships that I built in graduate school that really opened up the doors for an opportunity here in which they paid for us to relocate. So we moved here in 2016, and every since then there have been these like pivots in my life where I went from working in a religious institution and then pastoring one of the executive pastors at a church, and then having the opportunity to work on a presidential campaign in 2020. This was right before the pandemic started. And it was working on the presidential campaign where I kind of went behind the veil, you know, in the movie The Wiz, where they find out Richard Pryor is not actually the Wiz, but he's sleeping on the cot. It was like that. I was like, oh, this is how policy is being made. These are how the decisions are being made. And I was noticing that the people who were making decisions about people who look like me and had my lived experience did not look like me or have my lived experience. So it was really an eye-opening experience that really informed and shaped the work that I'm doing now, because I realized that the social policies of our time were being shaped and influenced behind closed doors that Black women, Black single mothers, Black working mothers don't have access to, right? And so that has kind of been the trajectory that the pandemic happens. I work for another political campaign, and then the current project birthed itself out of all of that work. And so it really has been this thread through of not a journalist but a storyteller, of connecting people's lived experiences to the possibility of hope, the possibility of dreaming, the thread through dreaming, to create the conditions for Black single mothers to thrive. So that is the fastest way I could tell that story
I
of
love
the
it.
trajectory, for sure.
I love it. Okay, I want to go back to something you said. Thank God for mamas,
Yes.
right? Because it sounds like number one that you had that family structure, but number two, it you had to humble yourself, right? But I also hear you saying like in that season that was what you needed. And so it's identify the it may not be exactly like you wanted to, to be, but what do you need, right? Not necessarily what you want, but what do you need? And recognizing that it's not forever, right? But it's going to get you from point A to point B. So I'm hearing that of having, an outward mindset, a growth mindset of being open to that possibility. I also hear you saying a little bit of, you know, be open to being surprised, right? I
Yeah.
I'm guessing that you didn't say, "I'm gonna go to seminary," and I'm guessing you just were kinda like, "Okay, I feel like this door is opening. Let me walk through it." And so again, this sort of idea of being open to possibility.
Yeah, and be willing to take calculated risk, right? The decision to move home, the decision to go to grad school, even the decision to move to New York and join a political campaign. Those were all like, I mean, I don't expect to do that. I didn't intend to do that. But if I'm willing to lean in and trust that God is not going to lead me into no foolishness, hello, then we might be all right. And so, yeah, I mean, sometimes you just gotta try and see what happens. I mean, what was the worst that could happen is that I would get here, everything would suck, and I would have to move back home with my mama. I mean, that was the worst that could happen, but at least you have somewhere to land.
I love that. There's a quote I heard from Joyce Meyer because you talk about fear and you talk about like contrasting that with hope. And I remember the season of my life where I'm like, how do I know I'm making the right decision? Like, I think this is the direction I should head in, but not really having clear certainty. And Joyce Meyer said, listen, if you love God, okay, and you go the wrong way,
It
he
was
gonna tell you, he gonna be like, sis.
come, come
And
on back.
so there is this freedom then in leaning into the thing you feel like you're called to and boldly going into an open door and not being limited by what you can see.
Yeah.
So that really resonates with me. Um, I want to get to the current project, but I also am cognizant that mothers, regardless of their experience, may be like at their ropes end, like maybe like, whoo, the pandemic, all of the things have made life challenging. What do you say to a woman who is just experiencing all of the things, feeling all of the things, maybe struggling with mental health, maybe struggling financially? Like, what do you say to that woman, that mother in this moment?
Yeah, that's good. You know, um, the pandemic has complicated um, the lived experiences of working mothers across the board, but in particular for those of us who are in the margins, Black and Brown folk. And, one of the things of self discovery that I have found is especially when we're thinking about like the relationship to ourselves and how that shows up with our children. And one of the things that I'm always telling myself, not only about my relationship to Ashley, but my relationship to myself and the things that are external factors that influence the way that I am experiencing myself in the world, is to not take it personally. That the things that are happening to and around us are just those things, and it's not an indicator about our ability to parent, our ability to work, our ability to love, and that we actually have greater capacity inside of us to show up in meaningful ways for ourselves and we actually realize. And I think that because I have even more recently been in such a place of like disorientation and dealing with grief and dealing with mental health stuff and feeling like those things were turning me inside on myself to be like, gosh, am I just missing the mark? Like maybe it's me. Is it me? Am I the drama? But what I realized is that I was internalizing things that did not belong to me. I was not utilizing the resources I had at my disposal, right? I think we talk about this. We literally just talked about this last week about the ability or our need to asset map. Where are our assets? Where do they live? I think we underestimate the assets we have at our disposal to really help us address the things that we need to take care of ourselves, right? And so I would actually encourage anyone who is listening to this and struggling and trying to figure out and balance it all, do something like an asset map. That's very like nonprofit language or whatever, but it literally is just mapping out who, where, what are the resources. Who can I call on? Where do I have some inroads in with particular organization or particular person or a church or your places of faith? Where are the resources that actually, because you map that thing out, who are the girlfriends or the homeboys that you can call when things are tough? Map it out and put it in front of you. And you will actually be surprised that the ways in which we think we don't have support, we actually do. It's
Mm.
just hard to really see that when you're like this far deep into it, where you're in this micro vision. But with asset mapping really opens us up to say, actually, I do have someone who can watch my kids on Friday, so I can go get a hour long massage. I actually do. I didn't realize that. So Sarah can come pick her up from after school. I can go to my appointment, and then I can return home in a couple of hours, right? And so that's my offering, and something that I exercise that I am doing myself, because it's easy to get so far down into it that you miss all the things around you, supports around you. But asset mapping can really help us pull that lens back to say, I actually have more support in these areas than I realize.
Boom. Everybody has homework. Y'all hear that? Asset mapping.
Asset map.
Let's figure it out. I love that. And taking time to figure out, so when you are at that stretch place, at that I can't do this place, pull out that asset map.
Yeah. Pull out a little piece of paper, a pen, who, where, what,
Boom.
who got it.
Boom.
Yep.
All right. Tell us about the current project.
Yeah, so the current project is an organization I started in the middle of a pandemic to really help.
Bold. Bold.
I know, but see, God got away because we needed something to do during the panic anyway. So why not start a nonprofit? What? Who does that? Uh, but it is an organization that is committed to the social, economic, and emotional well-being of Black single mothers. And we are often thinking about what are the intersection between programming that addresses the needs of Black mothers. When you think about economic wellness, emotional wellness, social wellness, but also the connection to policy. What are the policies that we could be advocating for to help sustain the thriving? One of the things that I know for sure is that a lot of organizations that are doing really amazing work for and with Black single moms, it's really important work. But what happens is we end up putting them back into communities that can't sustain the thriving, right? We try to get them to this place of economic thriving, but then we put them back into communities where there's inflation and the cost of living is just too high for them to really sustain themselves. So the current project is looking to be the bridge between those two worlds, to put cash in the hands of mothers who participate in our programs, to advocate for policies around social safety net to really expand and lengthen the runway for black mothers to continue to thrive. And so that is the work that we're doing. We're just marking our third year. The first 2 years are really great, and this, I know, I'm so excited. I can't believe it. This third year is really about getting super clear and deep about who it is that we serve and what it is that we do as an organization. One of the things that I love about the current project is that we don't focus just on Black single mothers in general. We focus on the Middler mom, Middler. And these are moms who are out earning social safety net wherever they live, but they actually under earn when we think about economic thriving and cost of living. So these are the moms that are stuck right in the middle. They're me. You know what I mean? I'm sure you know that experience as well as a mom. And so these Mittler moms are the moms that are really our niche cohort of moms that we focus all of our programming on to help them get out of that middle place and into a place of holistic thriving.
Um, that concept of a Mittler mom definitely does resonate with me. Where there are, even though it's fragile, some safety net programs like here, and then there's this space in the middle, and then it's like you're self sufficient.
Yeah.
Um, and I can remember being in that space and wanting so much for my kiddos, wanting to be able to send them to, all of the extracurricular and just literally not being able to
No.
make it work. So I love that you are focused there. Um, as we kind of start to wind down,
Oh
yeah,
no.
I know, right? Again, this is a community that we want women to feel seen. We want the experiences of motherhood, to be a place where we can say, here are the challenges, here are the joys, here are all of the things. So as we sort of uh, prepare to sign off, wondering if there's a word or two in 60 seconds or less that you would leave for mamas who are navigating life today.
Man, I a friend of mine recommended that I read this book called The Dip. It's actually right here on my table. It's called The Dip by Seth Godin.
Okay.
And it's a little book that teaches you when to quit and when to stick.
Ooh.
And so it's literally like 75 pages. And I started reading it because I was in this place where I was feeling like I am in a dip and I could go either way. I could say to hell with all this, or I could like dig into almost an ancestral place to get out of the dip into wherever the trajectory is going. And so the word that I have for the mothers, the women who are watching this, if you are feeling like you are in a dip and you are feeling like, but you're feeling like the dip, if you do not do what you are called to do, that it will be a place of grief. I am calling you to push yourself out of the dip because the world is waiting for you and your work and your gifts, and the world will not be the same without them.
Mm.
Push through the
What is
dip.
my hit so I can drop?
Huh?
This is the.
Mic drop. Yeah, the dip, honey.
That's it. That's it. So well said. Thank you. And I appreciate you sharing your experiences, your gifts. And I'm challenging everyone watching, do your asset map and think about the place that you are in and the gifts that you bring to this world. I thank you so much for joining us today, Alisha. I thank you for everyone tuning in. And we will see you next time for Women Work Well. Be blessed.
Bye.